it,
So I should get my time already.
January, I can show you.
yes, I think we should. Just, great. I'm sorry we were a few minutes late getting out here. We're going to get started momentarily. All right. Actually, I need a motion to adjourn exec and re-enter public session. Okay, I got a motion from Xavier and a second from Christine. All in favor? All right. Please join us in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Bash my leg. Okay. Just a few reminders about our emergency evacuation. If there should be an emergency, we have exits right here to the sides and in the back. Just make your way calmly to one of the exits. Also, just a reminder that this is a smoke-free building. All of our buildings and our grounds are smoke-free. Thank you. Okay, whoops. All right, so we're going to go to the Board of Education meeting minutes. It is upon recommendation from the Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education approve minutes from the March 25th, 2019 meeting of the Board of Education. Can I get a motion, please? Tom, and a second. Xavier, all in favor? You know what, I'm just realizing too, I should mention that Ms. Fears is out tonight. She wasn't well, but hopefully she'll be back next week for our meeting. Okay, and now we have an FYI on the budget appropriations report for general school lunch and special aid funds as of 3/31/19. We also have an FYI for our budget transfers and an FYI of our revenue status reports as of 3/31/19 as well. Okay, and finally, that brings us to the warrants. It is upon recommendation from the Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education approve the attached warrants, which were certified for payment on March 27th, 2019. Can I get a motion? Bill, and a second. Christine, all in favor? Excellent. Okay. That brings us to the board member communications and announcements. I'm going to open it up to my fellow trustees.
Nobody but me?
Looking at you, Christine, you want to?
I just want to go last, so if anybody
Oh, okay,
else-
go last. Anybody else have anything else that they want to share before?
Reminder, SEPTA meeting this Thursday evening at Jack Abrams, 7:30 right here, and it's about self-care for SEPTA parents or others. Please come join us.
Okay.
I can mention just briefly that Jim and I attended the Tri-CYA Honors Dinner. I don't know that that's quite the right title for it, but in any case, the superintendent from South Huntington was being honored, as was, can you remind me of the other person?
Andrea Bonilla.
Thank you very much. And
all of the mentors that
and all of the mentors of that program, which was really outstanding. And there were a lot of the mentor students were there, and they got up and spoke about the program and how it had affected their lives. We also had a student from Flower Hill, one of our own, got up, and
Cameron Batts is
he
my new
stole
hero.
the night. He spoke about, being in the program, and then he ended by saying that, in the future he plans to be the United States of America, so look out for him. And it was awesome. So anyway, that was a lovely night, and I'm glad we were there to represent Huntington School District.
Speaking of the Tri-CIA, I just want to tack on is tomorrow night is the free Ben and Jerry Cone night. I believe they'll
Always the
have
bearer
a
of
guest
good news,
scooper
Tom.
there from a certain time period if anyone would like their free
If
cone.
you decide you would like ice cream between the hours of 4:30 and 5:30 p.m. tomorrow, there will be a very, very generous scooper there.
Just a little tip,
For a scooper.
a super scooper, right.
Okay.
All right.
So those who attend these meetings regularly know that it is always my honor to congratulate the various drama clubs of the district on their performances. Tonight is certainly no exception to that tradition. I spent this weekend with the Huntington High School Drama Club, pit orchestra, and stage crew. I want to congratulate them on the spectacular performance which culminated in a standing ovation Saturday night. However, as some of you know, and as the local press has reported, there was a group of protesters who picketed outside the show on Saturday night. I choose to make my comments here as I feel this is the appropriate forum for this discussion, and I think the discussion is a valid and important one to have. In theater, we tell stories through the use of characters. Certainly, stories can be told in a racist manner, and characters are often portrayed in insensitive and even offensive ways. There are two sets of lenses through which the story is filtered. The first is that of the writer, actor, director, and what their intention is when presenting the characters and story. The second is that of the audience members, each who see a story through the lens of their own personal experiences and backgrounds. This is one of the reasons that theater is exciting and thought-provoking. Theater comments on society and hopes that the audience comes away seeing something in a way that they perhaps hadn't seen before. One thing that has been reinforced by this experience is that you cannot predict someone's reaction to a character based on one particular piece of information about that person. So this show was well received by some members of the Asian and specifically Chinese community, and some non-Asian theater community members found it to be in poor taste and offensive. To me, it's important to remember that these are characters in a play. There was no intention by the writer, the original performers on Broadway, or the Huntington High School Drama Club to make a statement about any culture as a whole. This is a fictional tale in the style of musical comedy. The characters portrayed have faults, and they are imperfect. You're not supposed to like Mrs. Mears. She's an evil, bitter woman who is hiding her identity from the police. She's doing it badly, probably because she is both a bad actress and a racist. The boys she enlists in her scheme are characters as well. They outwit her and save their mother, find love, and demonstrate that everything Mrs. Mears assumed about them is wrong. I'm not arguing that no one should be offended by the show. That's not for me to say. I'm merely stating what I believe the intention of the piece to be. I want to make clear that there was no yellow face in this production. There was no fake Chinese being spoken. The actors tried their best to use a dialogue CD and their teachers at their disposal to learn the proper pronunciation of the words in the script. This was the intention of the original actors and the writers of the Broadway production. It seemed to me from some of the comments I read that not everyone who opposed the production had actually seen it in its entirety. I'm sure that we are all proud of our students and their talent and bravery to get up on that stage. I know that every time I watch them, sorry, I'm getting emotional now. Every time I watch them get up there, I'm amazed at how courageous they are to put themselves out there for everyone to see and criticize. I learned a lot this weekend, but the students' bravery is something of which I already had full knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christine. I guess if all the other trustees have spoken, we're going to pass it to Mr. Polanski.
I don't think I still have Wi-Fi. Let me see.
Okay, a couple of things on the agenda. We're going to talk quite a bit about state budget and impact on finances for 1920, so I'm going to hold that off until the presentation. A couple of other things. I do want to acknowledge the entire music department district-wide, because we have once again been named as a NAM Foundation Best Community for Music Education in 2019. So congratulations. There's, again, a lot going on this evening. I also like to recognize, and I can speak across the board about the quality of education at all of our schools, at the primary level, up to the high school level. There is one particular primary school that has been recognized for 2 years running as a gap closing school. And you know what? We have so many different needs in the district and so many different programs that we implement in support of our children. But to have the Jefferson Primary School recognized for 2 consecutive years for closing the gap for our economically disadvantaged students, it warrants certainly recognition and appreciation for the hard work that they do that has contributed to that. So congratulations, Mrs. Capitulo Sade and Jefferson. And believe it or not, it's hard to believe that it's April and the school year is approaching, if are
Final
we?
quarter.
Final quarter. And the end of the year seems to go very quickly. Just to give quick mention to some summer programs that we have coming up. Our annual summer arts program is going to run from July 1st through July 26th, with I believe a little break in there for the July 4th holiday. And the registration deadline is May 31st. And I know once again we did it for the first time last year. I'd also like to, before I even get to this next program, thank Mr. Cusack and the high school staff. They brought half of the 9th grade to Long Island University for a college introduction program, and from what I hear, it was phenomenal, and they are bringing the other half this week. I'm going to try my best to stop by, but it seems that it was very well received by the students. It's giving them a taste of college academics as well as college life in general. So thank you for your diligence there and for working so hard to put that together. I think it's important that we give our kids as much exposure as possible to the things that are available to them once they graduate. And in that light, the other summer program that we're going to do, implement for a second time this year is the Camp College program, where we're actually going to take I'm going to say fairly significant group of students who may not have means to otherwise do so, to visit some of the colleges in the region, and that experience is invaluable and helps them to understand what's there for them upon graduating high school. So thank you for helping there as well, Mr. Cusack and company.
Robotics.
Oh, yes, thank you. Our robotics, we've had robotics activity across the board for the last several months. I'm going to say weeks, and certainly in full force. First Lego League Junior, first Lego League, and our first robotics at the high school level.
Robotics fan.
Awesome enthusiasm.
Everybody wants them to be a part of their alliance, and for all the right reasons. It is just a phenomenal group. They obviously advanced as part of an alliance beyond the qualifying round in each of the tournaments they participated in Hudson Valley and at Hofstra at the Long Island Regional. I was at a conference on the first day of the Long Island Regional. I was there for the morning on Saturday to watch them in action, but I will tell you that I was at a full superintendent room full of superintendents at a conference on Friday, and I was the only one with the FRC Spider app. I couldn't get these people away from me. Basically what it does is it allows you to follow match by match, and I was kind of half listening to what was being presented and half watching that app. But once again, it's not just their performance, but the manner in which they work together, the manner in which they represent this community, the manner in which they are bringing kids in, the inclusivity of the program. I don't know how they didn't take home the Chairman's Award this year, but big congratulations to the team on another successful season, and to Abby Holmes for winning the Dean's Award and a... Right.
Cheer.
And I guess Christine spoke so eloquently, but I think it's important that I share my perspective on the performance that I saw Friday night, and I certainly acknowledge that there are apparently multiple perspectives on the theme and content of the play. These kids and the staff worked so hard for months to put on an exceptionally high caliber production. And I need to reiterate what I said to a reporter yesterday. Their artistic intent was obviously never to disparage any individual or group. These kids are the cream of the crop, and they all are. This play has been done, I know, at many high schools and middle schools across the country in recent years, and that doesn't necessarily make it the right thing to do. But I do want to acknowledge how much effort was put into the research done by, effort was put into and research done by the high school drama club members to perform their roles with integrity and in alignment with the playwright recommendations. And I'll also reiterate that I understand that there are some upset people, and I think it's important to acknowledge that everybody is committed to viewing this as an educational opportunity, and I think the open and productive discussion to follow is an important piece of this. I am not a Broadway aficionado. Unfortunately for me, not having a concern expressed until the day of the production sort of didn't allow us to address anything in the manner that we really would have liked to address it, and that is, I am sorry if that cast any shadow on the work that was done in preparation for what you did. So, again, congratulations.
Yes, the board shares that sentiment too, and while we don't, mean to belittle anybody's concerns, because we would never do that, I also want to say that it's unfortunate that had to affect the way you felt about your final performance, which was, by the way, brilliant. Brilliant, standing ovation, deserving brilliance. So I just want you to try and take away from the fact that you should all be proud of every single moment of work and effort that you put into that production. It showed, the audience responded because we knew that you guys had put your hearts into it, and we could see all the work that went in, and we all thought you were stellar. So just keep that in mind. I know that can be bumpy and tricky, but just keep that in mind. Okay, that's going to bring us to public commentary number 1. And what I want to say, because I know we have some people here that may not have been here before during a board meeting, so let me just remind you about public commentary. First of all, the first section of public commentary is usually to address our items for action or discussion, which is on the agenda, which truthfully right now would be the budget presentation. So if there's anybody that does have a comment about budget presentation, we're going to let them step up first and have their 3 minutes. You can come to the mic if you are a resident, a student, or a staff member of the district. So if you live outside of the district, unfortunately, you can't speak at our mic. It's really for district residents only and people within the school community. You have 3 minutes to speak at the mic, and we ask you to do it respectfully. So no student names, no staff names. And then I would also just remind you that it's not a question and answer period, that you're up there to make your statement, and that, you know, you won't be getting answers from the board members or from the superintendent during that time. Okay, so before you speak, let me ask, of the people up there, are you speaking about the budget or do you want to speak about the show? Okay, no budget. Anybody in the audience that wanted to speak about the budget first? All right, then you know what? You may step up to speak and just mention to us your affiliation to the district, and we're going to
That just bends right down. Just bend that mic right down.
Yes, there you go. It bends down
As
to
a
you.
fellow
This
height
way?
challenged
This
person,
way?
Yes,
get it.
perfect. Just let us know
Okay.
your affiliation to the district.
All right.
Thank
All
you.
right.
And
Sure.
identify yourself, so if there's,
Okay, sure,
if
I
I
will.
need to call you back or we need to discuss
Yeah,
something further,
yeah,
I can,
Yeah,
okay?
okay.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, good evening, Board of Education, Superintendent, Administrator, and members of my community here tonight. My name is Shulin Liu. My husband and I have been residents of the Huntington School District since 1997. Our 2 children are Huntington High School graduates, classes of 2013 and 2017. Right now, I have an email letter written by my son, which was sent this afternoon to a district, but was blocked. Tina will be handing out the copy of the email to you right now. But I'm going to talk something about myself. First of all, I want to tell you that it's nothing, and it's never about the students. It's never about the student. They are wonderful. Okay. I'm here tonight because I want to express my shock and dismay regarding the selection of the Rory Modern Malley for the annual high school show. This show contains, definitely to us, racist content and portray racial stereotype. A character in the play who is white wears yellow face, makeup, and speak with a thick Chinese accent for comedic relief. I have accent. Do you truly feel this is acceptable for an educational institution that has a responsibility for teaching and promoting respect for all races and ethnic groups? I trust you to educate all our children to become good citizens. Can you understand that your choice of this show that contains racism elements against Asian inflicts pain on us, the Asian people? There are about 4,400 students in Huntington High School. Only 2% of them, of the student population, is Asian. I ask you to consider us a minority among the minority here in the community and show us the respect that we deserve like everybody else. We are in the year of 2019. School educators should use today's lenses and be sensitive to anything that comes across as racism in any way. Respect is engraved on the sidewall of high school main entrance. This respect should be equally extended to all racial and ethnic groups. Finally, we are here tonight not just to express our anger and hurt, and the hurt that we are feeling. We also want to know what measures will be adapted by the district to review future theatrical production for appropriate content.
Thank you.
We want to ensure that this will not happen again.
Okay, thank you. I'm
Not
sorry
just
your
to
time-
American, not just to Asian community, but to any other groups that may be a risk of being discriminated against. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. I just want to remind everybody, if I interrupt you and remind you that you're running out of time, please don't think I'm being rude. We just have to keep it to the 3 minutes, but thank you. Step right up.
Understandable. Okay.
Thanks.
So, thank you everyone that came out tonight and to the school board. So, our parents brought us to this.
Can you just identify yourself? I'm sorry.
Sorry. My name's Amanda Ye. Our parents brought us here to Huntington in 1983 because they thought it would be a good place to raise a family. My parents had no idea at the amount of racism their children would face as Chinese Americans in Huntington High School from other children. My family is equally astounded in the year 2019, a play such as Thoroughly Modern Millie could still be performed in a school which all three of us have graduated from. So, for a play that was written in 2000 based on a fiction movie from 1967, there's no excuse for the inclusion of Asian stereotypes. This wasn't some production written in the 1900s that didn't age well. It was purposely adapted and written in this way. So if there was nothing wrong with it, why was a public service announcement needed? It's very easy to take criticism as being politically correct, but would it have been acceptable for any high school to produce a show in this age in which white students dress and pretend to be whipped by an American plantation owner for laughs? If the answer to those questions is no, then why would it be acceptable to put on an insulting accent? An accent that me, my family, my parents, many people from our Huntington town has been ridiculed for having. We do not blame the students, but we do want to blame the adults overseeing this production. We blame the lack of oversight of the school because a quick search of the play should have given a pause. We blame the lack of response from the school district once this issue was brought up by the members of the community. Some approaches to more constructive than a public service announcement would be one, to have left the disclaimer on this bill, but also maybe host a discussion at the end of the talk about how racist tropes used in production can be dissected and learned from. I would like to mention I have not seen this play, but so maybe I don't know, but I would like to still make these suggestions. Number 2, make adjustments to the play and avoid all the racist tropes to begin with. And number 3, to maybe just think about picking another production. Let us bring together people rather than finding more reasons to split them apart. High school is an important time and very impressionable among the students, and it's important to teach them the right things. So thank you for your time, and in the future we hope for better consideration of put into the performances and other events throughout the school district. Sincerely from my brother, Alan Ye, also in the reserves of the military, a major, my other brother, Andy Ye, class of 2002, and me, class of 2012. Thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amanda.
Amanda's a former student. Michael Schwenderman, faculty member for 16 plus years, head of the drama club for the past 14. Thoroughly Modern Millie marked my 28th production in the high school auditorium. Satire, the use of humor, irony, exaggeration, or ridicule to expose and criticize people's stupidity or vices, particularly in the context of contemporary politics and other topical issues. As any English teacher who has read Animal Farm will tell you, satire is tricky. Critical hand-wringing over comedies like Urinetown, The Producers, and The Book of Mormon has become an opinion page staple. How apropos that the New York Times should run an op-ed piece today by philosophy professor and author Justin E.H. Smith that states, quote, Satire is a species of humor that works through impersonation, taking on the voices of others, saying the sort of things they would say, using one's own voice while not speaking in one's own name. It is not surprising that this craft is so often misunderstood. For when satirists do their job convincingly, when they get too close to their target, it is easy to hear them not just as the channelers of the views expressed in the satire, but as defenders of these views as well. It is at such moments that critics like to exclaim that the satirist has gone too far, while it would be more correct to say that the satirist has only done his job too well. You cannot enter the rehearsal process, create characters true to the work's book, or interpret songs that propel both the character's journey and the play's progression while constantly being concerned with protecting our students from possible unforeseen consequences around the sensitivities of a play. It does not serve anyone to play it safe. The students will not have the opportunity to fully immerse themselves into a character or the world of the play if they are constantly looking over their shoulder for fear of what someone in the community might think. The cast will not be giving their all with a split focus, half on their craft and the other half worrying about what people will perceive. Then, of course, the audience is also shortchanged, as they are now forced to see an entire production team worried about the reaction of a few thousand people. In the words of Jason Duncan, works of art should not only inspire and transcend, but also offend, provoke, and resonate. That requires writing about what's uncomfortable, controversial, and painful. Telling one's truth, no matter how ugly or awful. People need to laugh and feel good. People also need to know that others feel pain and sorrow. We witness Millie's journey through the New York of 1922 as she comes to grips with the society that surrounds her.
Mr. Schwindeman, I'm going to ask you just to wrap it up pretty quickly.
You got it. Among
you.
them, Bun Fu and Ching Ho. I believe Francis Ju, the actor who created the role in 2002 of Bun Fu, said it better than I ever could. It's another opportunity to cast shade on racist attitudes and assumptions about us and what we know and how smart we are and what we're capable of. And that's what the show offered us. It always did. I've always maintained that any show you do can be racist if you do it racist. This show can be done racist, but it doesn't have to, and actually it can be anti-racist. The message of the brothers is the same as Millie's empowerment or the same as Muzzy's empowerment. And the Chinese guys are the heroes of the story. Ching Ho gets the girl, I, Bun Fu, make enough money to get mom over, and I feel like the Chinese guys triumph in the show. Close quote. If that message is not clear within my production, then I have failed both my audience and my students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwindeman.
Wonderful, wonderful. Keep doing. Wonderful.
Hi.
Hello,
Yes.
my name is Steve Ye. I live in Huntington for past 30-some years. My English isn't the best, but don't confuse that was a lack of intelligence and understanding. I have worked for Fortune 500 company in tech department through the 40 years in the United States.
Thank you.
I am mad and angry for seeing this show. Did everybody watch the Saigon in Broadway? Did anybody watch Saigon in Broadway before?
Yeah.
Okay. How would you feeling if around the world Miss Saigon has including the screen American soldier kill village on the stage? Was that the appropriate representation of all American? Is all Americans people killed all the Saigon, all the Vietnamese women? Well, is that true? What happened is that Miss Saigon's reference to the explanation of a Vietnamese woman that wasn't used for the committee. My guess Is that where you not feeling it is funny, right? If that play in a high school, every American will be feeling funny at all? No. I don't find that funny. I am hardworking, neutralized American citizen who has brought my family up in Huntington area for last 30 years. Just because our numbers are small doesn't mean our Asian American doesn't matter. This is very important for us to stand up against the racists, okay? My kids have told me, give the drama teacher a benefit of the doubt. I'm not so sure. I think this was done miraculous. However, they think this negative representation was done out of ignorance. It was done because the drama department did not think that is big matter. Big deals. It is a big deal. We are taxpayer, we are the voter, we are the people. We matter. I hope this show will be the last one in Huntington areas. If you keep doing this, we will stand up, okay? You will be famous American. You will be famous white number one. You will be famous white number two. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Eric Reynolds, Director of Fine and Performing Arts. As educators, whether in the classroom, on the athletic field, or on stage, we are tasked and responsible for teaching content. And as educators, it would be irresponsible of us not to introduce that same content inside of a contextual framework. Over 4 months, our drama students spent hundreds of hours studying the script of a theatrical production, Thoroughly Modern Millie, which has been awarded 6 Tony Awards on Broadway. This school year alone, 2018-19, 26 public and private high schools, 1 middle school, and 17 university, amateur, and community theater organizations across America and Europe have produced Thoroughly Modern Millie. When planning for productions, all aspects of the show are considered, including Broadway artist statements and information from the Broadway creative team, including the writer of the show. This guidance and professional expertise is invaluable and allows our staff and students to prepare and produce an appropriate, authentic show where our student actors and actresses approach their roles with truth, integrity, imagination, and intentionality. Dick Scanlon, who wrote Thoroughly Modern Millie, the musical, is quoted as saying, "The idea of the show is to bust racist stereotypes and theatrically experience the chasm between stereotype and real thing." Within the content that was taught during our rehearsals, the context of material was respectfully and responsibly partnered to provide our students and audience a genuine dramatic experience. In bringing to life the script and the writer's artistic vision, wishes, and careful focus on each character and storyline, our students performed characters, not portrayals of stereotypes. They performed with sensitivity and professionalism. The intent of the writer of Thoroughly Modern Millie was to focus the story as a whole as being one of modernization, something that we are witnessing and living firsthand in the 21st century. The characters on stage are living in the 1920s, trying to achieve the American dream, reinvent and modernize themselves, and better the world around for all. And at the end of the show, they do achieve just that. I would like to thank Mr. Schwendeman for his leadership and work with our students this past weekend, over the years, and in the future. And I would also like to recognize the hard work, dedication, responsibility, and professionalism of the entire student cast, crew, and pit orchestra for their production of Thoroughly Modern Millie. Bravo.
I'm Kenny. I'm a resident of the district of 2 kids. One goes to Erin, who's in the 9th grade, and my son is the 6th grade in this school. I feel I come to a really wrong time. I don't want to steal the show, but I don't want to talk about the show. I want to talk about the STEM program. I'm sorry. My son is graduating from STEM this year, and that make then for the choice of where he go to middle school, and I'm thinking about the choices, and that depends on my my daughter's experience at the Finley and the high school. I feel that the high school and the middle school could do much more to capitalize for what a wonderful program that the STEM provides our kids. A few examples. Aaron has represented the school district to many different musics, sports, mock trials. They all have bus service. The only time that the school does not provide a bus service, the science fair this year. I have to drive her. The math competition at a Finley, 7th grade, 8th grade, we have to drive them. There's no bus service. When you have everything else to get a bus and the math kids and science kids does get the bus service, I don't feel it's right. The second thing, STEM, and I think Woodhull as well, they send the 6th graders, the kids in the math program, in the Math Olympiad program, to this Institute of Merit, operated by the college, the SUNY College at Old Westbury. My son just went this Saturday, and Aaron went there 3 years ago, but I just learned that they also have the same opportunity as a 7th grade, 8th grade, and 9th grader, but nobody have ever told us. Once they get to the 6th, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade. As a matter of fact, the program they're testing, they're taking a test, and they're competing with other 7th graders from other schools who gets twice chance of taking the exam. And, as everyone went to 6th grade, she didn't get in, but, she wouldn't know that, we didn't know that she actually had the chance to do it as a 7th grader. So that's, another thing I feel that there's a lot of things that the schools can be, can do better.
All right,
I might out of time, but,
Yes,
okay.
thank you very much. Wait 1 second.
You can sit down. Just a quick response to that, and I actually agree with everything you said. The math competition was brand new this year, so we didn't have it as part of the transportation package, but we've already talked about looking into that for next year. And please understand, we're actually looking into expanding some of these things into the middle school as of now for next year, so you're speaking at the right time. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Hi. Before you start, I just want to, we usually do 30 minutes at the beginning of our first public commentary and 30 minutes at the end, so we're going to have time for just 3 more speakers, and then the other 3 are going to have to wait till the end. Or you want to?
Let's see how.
Okay. Let's see how fast you can all speak. Go.
My name is Seema Ali. I have 3 children in Huntington schools. I'm also, South Asian. I grew up in Huntington, so I'm speaking as a parent and also happen to be a lawyer. One of the things I just want to say, a lot of comments that have been raised have to do with racism, discrimination, and I think one of the themes you want to think about is respect. And I feel that this is a forum and there is a proper forum to raise complaints. And one of the biggest issues I have as a parent is the way and the manner in which this issue came up. And what happened was the way it happened on Saturday and the volatility of the situation put the children in harm's way. Yeah. Being there that night, it was very tenuous, it was very scary as a parent to watch, and I believe that there is a forum and a debate for some of these discussions. And to be honest, this show has been around since 2000, And it's not a secret what the show is about. And if there were debate or concern about the choice of the show, it should have been raised at an earlier time in a forum like this, not in a way to put the children in harm's way. They performed that show on Saturday night in spite of having people in the audience that were threatening. And it was scary as a parent to watch. And I completely think that was wrong. And I don't think the other part is that the way it got portrayed by a student posting, the way it started is a student posted on Instagram. The video was illegal. It was a recording of a copyrighted event, and it was posted on social media. And I think that should be addressed for sure. But I think that the idea is that the way all of this came about is that there is some sort of assumption which is being made by the choice of the school to choose this play, somehow makes the school racist, and somehow makes the students that performed this play racist. And people were called today at school racist because they performed in the show. And that is completely wrong. If there is a choice about the play, and that's what the question is, if that's something for debate, okay. But because they participated and because they chose to participate does not make the students racist. And I really think there should be some addressing of the copyright issues here. They had to get a license to perform this show. There's a fee involved. You cannot record it. It says on the program, and there was very specific instructions not to record the play, there were postings made, which constitutes a publishing. Secondly, when you do take a copyright license, you can't alter the performance without getting written permission. And some of these comments about, oh, they could have changed this, they could have changed that, no, you can't. Once you do that, and that, I think you have to get your facts straight. So the intent clearly was not to be discriminatory, and I just feel like the kids were wrongfully being punished for it.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Lowe. I'm a junior at Huntington High School. I have been a part of the drama club for 3 years now. Asians have been misportrayed in the media time and time again. Myself, along with many other Asian Americans, have seen our culture stereotyped repeatedly. And as a third-generation Asian American, I have been offended. However, this was not one of those times. Thoroughly Modern Millie, for those who pay attention to the plot and to the characters, can attest to the fact that Mrs. Mears is a villain who actually draws attention to this issue. She is a white woman that is under the disguise of a Chinese woman in order to hide her criminal identity. Mrs. Mears' backstory is that she is a bad actress. She is an ignorant American who genuinely believes that her portrayal of a Chinese woman is accurate, when, unbeknownst to her, it is not. In our scripts, it reads, in the stage directions, that the actress portraying Mrs. Mears should be encouraged to embrace the offensiveness of her politically incorrect rendering of Asian, confident in the knowledge that, when contrasted with actual Asian characters that we meet later on, her depiction of a hateful stereotype will be busted as inauthentic and absurd. If anything, this musical makes fun of people like Mrs. Mears who think that Chinese people sound and behave like that. That is what makes it comedic. The fact that people such as this character are so ignorant as to believe that that is accurate. The characters Bun Fu and Ching Ho are intended to be accurate portrayals of Chinese men. In fact, the two young actors who played these roles spent hours perfecting and correcting the enunciation of their Mandarin and Cantonese lines. I was nervous going into the show. I did not want to be part of a racist show that offended my culture. However, I did not know the show. After studying the material and reading through all of the script, I understood the purpose of Mrs. Mears' character. I saw that Bun Fu and Ching Ho were the true heroes and were able to live out their version of the American dream. I did my research on this show before making any snap judgments, and most importantly, not a single person in the cast, pit, or crew was forced into doing, saying, or acting anything that made them remotely uncomfortable. But I digress. Everyone is entitled to their opinion, as I am to my own. It is beyond inappropriate to attack our children, our teachers, and our hard work. Not a single person in that cast, pit, and stage crew did anything but put all of their effort and pour their hearts and souls into every single performance. Having to stand on stage as we and my friends were photographed and recorded without our consent was extremely uncomfortable, as we are minors and did not give our permission for anyone to use our photos in any social media post or newspaper article. Art and theater in particular is not always understood, nor is it always accepted. People who have not seen our production, who did not pay attention to our plot, and who did not see both sides of the cause fully educate themselves on this show, have decided to make snap judgments on our production without all the information. So I ask that everyone here tonight put their preconceived notions behind them and look at all sides of this discussion before jumping to any conclusions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Just so you know, we're going to deserves the applause. I'm just going to let you, right, we're going to let the four of you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then we'll proceed with the rest. Maybe, no, you're okay, come back. Guy in the hat. You're number 4. No.
Could I
Stay
just
right
say something
there.
quickly? Could I just say something quickly to Jenny? Thank you for that well-researched, logically argued, persuasive
That was very
speech.
articulate. Yes, well done. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Abby Semmelsberger, and I am a junior at Huntington High School, as well as the vice president of the Drama Club. This past weekend, I played the lead in Thoroughly Modern Millie, a show that discusses the American dream and how it can be achieved by people from all walks of life. As soon as the show was announced, I dove into research. I read news articles, reviews, and interviews about the show, as well as the time period, in order to better contextualize my understanding of the production. Once I read the material in its entirety and understood the full scope of what I had researched, I understood the purpose of the character of Mrs. Mears. She is a satirical representation of ignorant and hateful Americans who truly believe that Chinese people speak and behave in such a ridiculous manner. Once I saw the show in its entirety, not just the first half, I understood that the characters Bun Fu and Ching Ho were more realistic portrayals of these people who stand up for what they believe in, and end up being the true heroes of the production, as they are the ones who achieve the American dream and end up saving the day. Juxtapose this with the fate of Mears, who is exposed as a hateful and offensive person who is apprehended and exposed as an evil villain. I would never have participated in a production, let alone starred in it, had I ever, even for a second, thought it was truly racist or offensive. It is impossible to articulate how unbelievably upsetting it is to be so misunderstood and to be accused of something you are so vehemently opposed to. As someone who has been in theater their entire life, I can tell you that our director, Michael Schwendeman, is the most caring, inclusive, and compassionate theater director I have ever encountered. He cares for the safety, happiness, and comfort of those in his productions above anything else. I have seen him give opportunity to everyone, regardless of age, gender, sexual orientation, ability, or race. He has given roles to students of color that in other theaters may not have been given the same opportunity. To anyone who is truly offended by our show, I sincerely apologize, as no one in this show went into this production with the malicious intent of mockery. I believe we are one of the most diverse, inclusive, and accepting groups in our school. You are entitled to your opinion, as I am to mine. However, what I cannot condone nor ever forgive is the blatant intimidation as well as the demonization of a group of children, both online and at the school on Saturday night. People who do not know our school, do not know our drama club, do not know me, and most certainly do not know Michael Schwendeman, spoke as to their outrage. Well, on this, I have to agree. I am outraged. Outraged that I had to hold my friend as she wept into my arms on the bathroom floor half an hour before our curtain went up. Outraged that I shook like I have never shaken before on that stage because I thought someone was going to physically harm me. Outraged that a group chose to attack a club of children for participating in a school event that we worked on for months. A large portion of those who did not like our production mentioned leaving at intermission, to which I point out, how on earth can you comment on an issue with only 50% information? It is so incredibly upsetting to hear people who did not see our show, our full show, jump to conclusions that are unfounded and in some cases blatantly untrue. I am so incredibly proud to be a part of a school district that respects the arts and does not censor topics that are uncomfortable to talk about. I implore the board not to make any rash decisions. The children of Huntington, the Drama Club of Huntington, deserves better than this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Abby.
Hi, I'm Madeline Howitt. I'm a senior at Huntington High School. I've been student director for this drama club for 3 years. I've worked alongside these amazing people and right beside Mr. Schwindeman. It's valid for people to have these opinions, and nobody has the right to invalidate them. But Mr. Schwindeman would never put a student through a situation that isn't morally or politically correct. He wouldn't do anything that would make us uncomfortable. The musical is placed in 1922, when many immigrants are coming to America. The characters Bun Fu and Ching Hao are perfect examples of people trying and succeeding at their American dream. On the other hand, Mrs. Mears, the antagonist, is a white woman portraying a Chinese woman. Her portrayal is not accurate and highlights many stereotypes others have of Asian Americans. It's not supposed to be accurate to the audience because Mrs. Mears believes it's correct. Her character is meant to bring light to the stereotypes we face in our society today. Ching Hao and Bun Fu are examples of the American dream coming true. In 2018, the Broadway website Playbill released an article on an interview they did with Francis Dway, the original actor for Bun Fu. This next portion is to quote Dway's article. I have always thought that the Chinese guys and Mrs. Mears are the most revolutionary part of the show. To actually have real Chinese characters singing and speaking in their own language and meaning it and to link their immigrant story to the same story as Millie and Jimmy and Muzzy, all these people who just want to be their best selves and come to America because of the American dream. All these people who come to New York to reinvent themselves and be modern. I think that's exactly what the Chinese guys are all about. To continue, he says, we've had a lot of discussion, and the writer Dick Scanlon, composer, and director have all turned to me and the original actor for Ching Hao and asked if they can be their barometers. They said, you guys have to tell us and let us know what is right and what is wrong. We talked about different drafts and different things. I was looking forward to tonight, the show, because it's another opportunity to cast shade on racist attitudes and assumptions about us as Asian Americans and what we know and how smart we are and what we are capable of. And that's what the show offered to us. This play was written long ago and has been performed for years. Nobody's opinion is wrong and everyone is entitled to one. But it's not right to see one piece instead of looking at the musical as a whole. We're students at a high school. We've worked hard, and I have nothing but pride for everyone who has stuck together. In these 3 years, I have grown really close with this amazing group of students, and I wouldn't trade my time with them for anything. It may seem silly, but I've grown to think of them as family and almost like my kids in a sense, so I would never want any harm to come to them. And unfortunately, that may have happened this weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. Dad, no, I'm going to ask you to wait till the end of the, because we were. Yeah, okay, but really that's it. No problem. Okay, I got you. If you can keep it really brief, because I really have let this go on too long already. But go, sorry.
Yeah. No,
Thank
it's okay.
you. Thank you, Mr. Schwedman.
I'm going to be
Appreciate
really
it.
brief. Hello, my name is Robert Jean-Gilles. I'm a junior at the high school. I just want to start off by saying that this play had we had no intentions to hurt anybody of any race or ethnicity. I just want to put that out there. And I understand everyone's opinion. I respect it all fully. But at the same time, what really makes me furious is the way that this issue was handled by those that were upset. You say you target the district. What do you think we're a part of? We are the district. You say that intentions are not to hurt us. There have been many people in history whose intentions were good, but hurt a lot of people. I cannot stand when people are ignorant. I'm sorry, I'm going to be blatant here. I cannot stand when that happens. You're telling me that you saw half of the show or didn't see the show at all, and you're going to come attack us like that, saying we put kids in yellowface. Do you know what yellowface is? Have you looked it up? If you took 2 seconds to understand the plot of the show, don't come at my family like that. Unacceptable. I never want this to happen again. Thank you.
That was very chivalrous. No, 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 I'm sorry. There is no calling out. No, I am sorry, but there's no calling out from the audience. I'm sorry. No, the problem is that's not the way the rules go. If you noticed, all those students lined up and waited their turn. There will be another public commentary section at the end, and you are more than welcome to speak then. But as I said, we were only going to let the ones speak who were waiting online, and now we're going to let them finish. It is your turn. You may go.
Like I said, I'm going to keep this short. My name is Phoebe Walther. I'm a senior at Huntington High School. I would just like to make this clear that excuse me, before you leave, may I speak?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
At least have the respect to listen. They stayed and listened to you.
That the character Mrs. Mears wasn't supposed to be an accurate portrayal of an Asian American. She's a failed actress. Excuse me.
That's okay.
You know what,
Go ahead,
you just
Phoebe.
keep going
You're
because
being
what you're
recorded,
saying
don't
is
worry.
important and we are listening.
It's okay, Phoebe.
She is a failed actress in the 1920s who couldn't make it as an actress and obviously could not make it as what she was disguised. Because if you watch the end of the show, you would see that she was caught and turned in by her fellow characters Bunfu and Ching-ho. As a part of the drama club for 4 years, I fully trust in his ability to choose the appropriate I'm so sorry.
No,
entertaining
do not
shows.
apologize. It's okay. Take a second, take a breath. You're doing a terrific job, and don't at all. Pam, do not. Not that student. Not now. Okay. Excuse me. You know what? I'm sorry. Excuse me. I am the Board of Education president. We are not going to have people calling out from the audience, or I will have you removed, and I am not kidding. Try me. You are doing a great job. Take a deep breath. We want to hear exactly what you have to say because it's important.
Thank you
You
so
go
much.
ahead.
I myself played the role as Mrs. Mears, and I never intended to offend anyone. I would never take the role to offend anyone of any race or any color, any point in time. Like I said, I trust my fellow schoolmates and anyone a part of the district. And especially Mr. Michael Schwinneman, my English teacher and drama director for 4 years. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for getting up. Okay.
I just want
Thank
to say,
you very
I just want
much
to say
for
one quick
waiting,
thing.
too. I appreciate that. It was very
I just need
chivalrous of
5
you.
seconds.
Okay.
I just want to acknowledge, after hearing all those students speak, it's really obvious, but I just need to acknowledge how amazing are the kids of the drama club. I just
You are all amazing.
just want to acknowledge how
My name is Richard
Amazing.
McKenna, and I'm a father here in the district. My son, Harrison, he's a sophomore. I'm also a professor of computer science at Stony Brook University, and I'm here to talk about something completely different. But I do feel it's a time-sensitive sort of thing, so I don't want to put it off anymore. I mean, you
Right.
know I've been here before.
Yes.
Trying to get computer science courses, AP computer science courses in the school district, which is very near and dear to my heart. And, I've been lucky. My son joined the robotics team this year and really had a great experience with that. And, robotics, a big portion of it is programming, and we need more programmers for the robotics team. We don't have a program that helps teach them the fundamentals of programming, and that's something that they need. In addition, we have a program at Stony Brook University for high school students. You can be 15 years old to go and do research for the summer in a research lab. We had applicants from all over the country, all the way from Washington State. We got no applicants from Huntington High School. Why? We don't have a computer science course. Can't apply if you don't have one. Not going to be accepted. So we have people in Washington taking advantage of this great research opportunity at Stony Brook University and in our own school district. We're not equipped even to have students apply. Incredible amount of things like that students can take advantage of if they learn to program. And learning to program at the high school level, again, gives them that advantage, that opportunity. It opens all these doors to them. And again, it's not that I want to, say that other courses shouldn't exist. Of course, all these other courses should exist, but we have no computer science courses. And look at how many courses we have in all of the other curriculum areas. It's it's a major, I think, deficiency, and I'm gonna sort of keep bothering everybody about it.
That's
I
okay.
want my son to be able to take that course before he graduates. You know, he's a sophomore. By the time he's a senior, I want him taking that course. That's what he wants to do. He wants to study at the collegiate level cybersecurity. He wants to study programming. And he's getting no help from the school district in that regard. I'm sorry to put it that way, but that's the truth. And it's the sort of thing that there are other school districts that do it spectacularly well. And I don't know why we can't do it. We have the resources to do it. We just need the will. And I'm just going to keep bothering until he graduates. And if he doesn't do it by the time he graduates, I'll be back here anyway.
You can definitely do that. Thank you very much for your input. I appreciate it. Any comment?
Mr. McKenna, before you leave,
Mr. McKenna?
Mr. McKenna, just want to follow up and indicate that, and I'm probably stepping a little bit out of turn here, but I'm going to share with you that I don't believe you're going to have to pound this idea any further, because we are working on a proposal as we speak for AP Computer Science Principles and AP Computer Science A to move forward.
Oh, outstanding. All right.
All right, with that, we are going to move to our budget presentation of the night. This is a budget presentation about revenue. I don't know if some of the students want to take this opportunity to slip out, but if you do, now would be the time. And the rest of us will find our seats.
Okay, I'm just going to flip through the slides really quickly. I'm not going to say anything, just... No.
Do they make it look like the guy is running if you flip through? At least somebody gets my jokes, Gabby.
Okay, if I could, thank you. They probably do it. I don't know what was just said because I missed it.
Well, you'll read it in Pam's article tomorrow. It's fine.
I don't.
That's 4 blahs. That was 4 blahs.
I don't think I'm finding that humorous at all. Okay, we are in the final stages of budget presentation because obviously next Monday is the night of board adoption. So this meeting generally and typically follows. You want to just. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. This follows the April 1st deadline, which is a very important one in terms of state budget, which, assuming it is approved on time, we have revenue numbers that we can now input. We do. So just a couple of things I'm going to move through very quickly. Some of the final state budget highlights. These are all over the place in terms of our educational conference board organizations, but school aid, we didn't get as much as most of the organizations requested, including the Board of Regents, but we did get almost $1 billion overall, $619 million increase up from in foundation aid, up from the $338 in the executive proposal. Didn't lead to a great deal of excess for us, but we're going to work with what we have at this point. Expense-based aids are up as well. There is a variation on the executive proposal to implement foundation aid equity plans. It is his desire to make sure that the highest need districts receive the most aid, and we know that Huntington is in a little bit of a quandary because we are looked at as a mid to high wealth district, and that combined wealth ratio doesn't really define what really exists in the community in terms of socioeconomic diversity. The expense-based aid categories and the reduction in building aid reimbursements, I mentioned those a few weeks ago, they're all out, which is a good thing because it looked like that was actually going to squeeze in those aid categories in more ways than one. Tax cap is now permanent. Also part of the budget, although not financial, any mandate to use state assessments and APPR is gone. We knew that already. In fact, now it is a permanent fixture. Local assessments must be collectively bargained. Assessments are still a part of the process. There is still an APPR law in place, which concerns me to a degree, and I'm sure concerns a lot of people. I don't know what's going to happen with that moving forward, but right now we have to look to retool it based on the verbiage in this budget. The BOCES district superintendent salary cap was increased for the first time in many years. That's not a school district superintendent. They are BOCES superintendents that are referred to there. We now have the authorization to establish a teacher retirement system reserve fund. Actually, it's a sub-reserve fund that would be incorporated with the ERS reserve, which is actually an important piece that I will be speaking to the board about very shortly, because we are expecting a major increase in TRS expenditures for next year. Not for next year, for 2021. SUNY schools, to partner with high schools, offer no or reduced cost tuition for dually enrolled students. That's a college push, obviously. Piggyback transportation contracts where districts can combine their transportation needs. 3-year extension of mayoral control, which doesn't impact us because we live not in the city. A staggering of building condition surveys. Dr. Acker, a couple of meetings ago, indicated that we are in the process of doing this right now, and it is a costly process. It allows us to break up those costs. Interestingly, the proposals to mandate seatbelt use on buses and authorize districts to install stop arm cameras, that was all pulled out. And I believe that was going to leave a lot of the onus on districts to enforce it, which I think is the reason why it was pulled out. And this is an interesting one. Requires 3-hour paid leave for employees to vote in non-district elections. There was something along these lines already in the law that did have an adjustment made for those who had 3 or 4 hours at the end of their day still to vote. That was not included in this premise, so this is something that we're going to have to work out on non-district election days, including our conference day, for those that wish to take advantage of that clause.
So now it's for everybody, not just within parameters?
Now it is for everybody, all employees, and not the school district elections, obviously, but any non-district election, November, whatever the conference day is, whatever that election day is, and any others that are scheduled. That's going to be a hardship. We're going to have to work diligently to make sure that we are not left with a problem there. And a change to the STAR rebate program, which a lot of people are unhappy about, including you've got to stay on top of your request for a change, or you may lose eligibility for it just for logistical reasons, which is not what we're looking for here. Okay, I'm trying to move quickly. Revenue source categories, I'm going to go through them quickly. First and foremost is state aid. This number is a little bit misleading in a couple of different places. The real important category for us is foundation aid. We did get a net of $178,000 and change above the executive proposal once the final budget was released. So there is some benefit here. You're going to see a lot of bouncing around. Those expense-based categories that follow foundation aid, that's really dependent upon what we spend in during prior year budgets, and that aid comes back to us incrementally. We're not going to complain about any increases that we have, but obviously our mandated expenditures are much more significantly increased than the increase in state aid. A couple of facts about Huntington. Well, so this is, I should make it very clear here. You're looking at a slide here that shows our 18-19 actual to budget comparison. That's where that 5.22% increase kicks in. The real important comparison, however, is budget to budget. So we came in less than budget this year primarily because we spent less, so we received less aid. But if you look at budget to budget, we're receiving less than 2% of an increase overall in state aid. Some interesting factoids about state aid, and I'll go through them quickly. 1.552, it has actually gone up, the combined wealth ratio from 2018-19, which is a complete anomaly in terms of how school districts look when you compare that number to the second number. Almost 55% of our students have been situated with free and reduced lunch prices. 1.552 combined wealth ratio would not suggest that in a vacuum. Nobody would guess that right off the top of their heads. And we've looked at other districts. There are very few Long Island districts that look anything like this. Even though there are some similar socioeconomically, it doesn't look like that. And state aid overall, because of that high combined wealth ratio, it's only 13.4% of the district budget overall. So most of our money, most of our revenue in terms of expenses, covering expenses, is coming from the tax levy. It's coming from taxpayers. And I have this district in my mind. I never name it. I use it every year. They have a similar size budget with a 0.7, less than 1, below the average, and receive over 4 times the state aid, 46% of its budget. That is a significant difference. Almost half its budget is from state aid. It's incredible. I'm going to say we have 4,600 in the district, so you're talking about,
No, at that.
oh, I'm going to say 75, 80% in that area, and that's just a rough estimate. But, you know, combined wealth ratio is based on reported personal income, so there's a lot of ways that formula doesn't really work. And I know there's been talk about changes, but you know, here it is in its very basic form. We get shortchanged, and it does not match really what our needs dictate.
But that also highlights how even on Long Island, a 0.7 should get you, a 1 should get you close to 50%.
That's about right.
But on Long Island, even down at 0.7, you're not even getting 50%.
Correct. Which is frightening, and that's why, you know, again, when you have these upstate districts, and it always turns into the downstate districts get too much. And if you ask some of the school superintendents in North Country, in the upstate New York regions, they will basically all argue that same point. Meanwhile, we pay for a lot of their education up there, and it goes without saying, because we know, you know, we know they know what they need, and it's, you know, nobody's necessarily wrong here, but we know that if our foundation aid was fully phased in and fully what it's supposed to be based on a formula, we'd receive almost another $10 million every year in state aid, and we don't. Okay, some much smaller, less significant reserve categories. Most of these are pass-throughs, tuition from other districts, special ed services provided to non-resident students attending private and parochial schools within the Huntington School District. We have to pay for those services, and those districts pay us back. This is a pass-through. We bill their home districts, and we also get reimbursed from the state for students who attend 4410 schools for students who are visually and auditorily impaired. And we are basically in the same category that we use a 5-year average here, and it hasn't really changed in terms of budgeting. Health fees, same situation. We provide health services. I share that. I think the board approves the health services rate each year. We provide nurses, for example, to St. Patrick's School. There are a lot of students at St. Patrick's School who do not live in Huntington. We will pay for the health services there, and those home districts will reimburse us. So again, it's a pass-through, also based on average and contracts, etc. So the budget revenues haven't changed there. Building use fees. These are usage fees paid by outside group as per board-approved schedules they're actually fairly recent. Auditoriums, fields, gymnasiums, classrooms, etc. Groups coming in will also pay for additional custodial. Sometimes we attempt to accommodate. If the custodian is here anyway, we won't bill them, but if we're adding custodian or security, we will bill those outside groups. And there's a little reduction here. This is settling in based on the new schedule. Increased auditorium use. We budgeted a little bit more last year. That didn't come to fruition, so this is based on actuals for the current year, as opposed to just a flat budget carryover. Interest income, you have a checking account, CDs, night class, which is a group of investments that school districts can take advantage of. And here actually is one of our significant sources of revenues, and this may be less generous than it actually appears, and it was a good year for investments. I figured Tom would ask this, so I asked Kathy to gather these numbers. The checking account is a 1.25% interest rate. There's very little money there. The CD, 2.24%. I think there's about 20 million that is put there. And these are, you know, before they're used for covering expenditures, and the night class, 2.295%. So just to give you a sense of rates, they are conservative investments. Summer school tuition. Fees paid to attend summer school. We have not held summer school here in some time, primarily because we don't have large enough buildings to hold the 6 schools in a satellite building. That 15,000, I think, was a remnant from we alternated year after year. We would hold it, then South Huntington would hold it. Now there are 6 districts involved, and South Huntington's buildings are bigger, so I believe it's going back to either Whitman or, not Finley Stimson. But when that's the case, we're not pulling in any revenue, so that was pulled out of the equation here, which is the right thing to do. Driver ed, it's a pass-through. There's an expense here. There's also revenue, so this is supposed to pay for itself, and it generally does. Adult ed, same thing, pass-through. You're looking at revenues today. Xavier, stop me if I'm going too fast. These are pass-throughs, so you're seeing the revenue today, you saw the expenditures a couple of meetings ago. Oh, no, I wasn't busting him, he's the one who wanted me to go fast. I'm just make sure I'm going fast enough. Other revenue sources, pilots, charges for lost items, E-rate funding, which thank you to Kathy for all the work that she's done on this. We get a lot more in E-rate funding than we have ever gotten before. Prior year's BOCES refund, which is something we get every year and it varies in amount, gifts and donations, interfund transfers. In sum here, you're looking at, with all of this together, you're looking at about 12,500, not a great deal, and most of that is most of that comes back to an increase in E-rate funding. A lot of work goes in there. Thank you for that, Kathy. All right, then we get into some of the other areas that can kick in here. We have worked exceptionally hard. I'm going to go back 8, 9 years in terms of budget construction. There was a lot more fund balance appropriated. This is prior year's surplus used to reduce the tax levy. If there is a lot of this to be used to reduce the next year's tax levy, you're not budgeting correctly. You're budgeting too much, and you're asking for too much from the taxpayers. That has since changed considerably over the past couple of years. I'll come back to that in a minute. And we also have reserves that exist for very specific categories, very specific expense categories, and I'll go through them very quickly. We are allowed to hold from year to year 4% of the budget in unappropriated and undesignated fund balance. Actually, as of 6/30/18, notice that the number comes down with a slightly larger budget. That's because we have less than 4%. It's 3.98, which is actually, it actually is looked upon favorably by the state comptroller. Notice the 1.4 million in appropriated designated fund balance. That is not a lot based on the size of our budget, 130 plus million, and that was well over two and a half, I believe, many years ago. We have brought that down, and that's just more diligent budgeting. Capital reserve fund balances, you'll notice a major decrease there, and that's because the board had agreed to put a lot of work on the table last year. Voter approved will be done this summer, and you will notice 6/30/19 that 3.829 is going to go down considerably as well because of the projects that are on the table this year should they be voter approved. EBLR, we did add. We are still a little bit underfunded there, but close. Repair reserve, recall that we moved all the money out of there and into capital because that was designated for something that it couldn't be used for, so we did it the legally permissible way and moved it into capital reserve, so that's zeroed out. The retirement contribution reserve, only ERS at this point, and it looks like we'll be able to, and we did put some fund balance back there, and it looks like we may be able to manipulate that a little bit. We're still waiting for some of the final rules related to establishment of the other sub-fund, the TRS reserve. Unemployment insurance and workers' compensation are comparable from year to year. So those are the reserves that we are working with. What this slide shows is what we have actually placed in the budget to use. Even though we're depleting a reserve per se by that amount, we are actually using it as revenue minus the capital reserves. That is not revenue. That is a separate entity. But we are, again, appropriating $1.4 million in 1920. We talked about, and actually the board adopted the resolution for the ballot, the $3.846 million for the partial roof at the high school, for the boiler at the high school, boilers at the high school, 3 of them, I believe. Lockers at Finley, which are long overdue, and the turf field, the netting, and the goalpost. So that's your 3.846. We have upped our EBLR contribution or removal from reserve for use as part of that is a budgeted revenue, EBLR. Retirement contribution, also budgeted. Unemployment and workers' comp, the same thing. So those 4 bottom rows show budgeted revenue allotments. And what that serves to do is allows us to use reserve money as opposed to charging the taxpayers to pay for the expenses related to those specific expenditures. And this, not to go through this, Kathy loves this slide. She can't wait for the presentation of it every year, but it kind of shows how our reserve balances have come down a little bit, and the activity that takes place between beginning and ending of each year. I won't bore you to death with this. This was actually reviewed by our state aid planning expert. Reserve usage, although some of that is budgeted, it does reflect the capital reserve use, and that is actually just capital fund, capital reserve manipulation. There is no piece of the budget that addresses capital. So in sum, we are looking at an overall, and I'm going to go right to the bottom right corner, we're looking at about $900,000 of an increase in revenue, and that's state aid and everything else that goes along with it. But notice, interest income is the biggest component, not state aid, and the reserve use, that $227,000, we are committing to using more from our reserves as opposed to, again, upping general fund budget lines or expenditure lines. So what are we looking at? So back on the 25th, we were $532,914 short of the levy limit. And what we have done since then is made some adjustments to reduce that number in red, in brackets and parentheses. We did take our instructional coach expenditures, and thank you to Ms. McCoy for making this an easy transition here. We moved those salaries into the Title IIA grant. It's the same money, just from a different place. We took some out of the employee retirement system, and that's just based on, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the teaching assistants who were shown in the last budget presentation that's coming out. There were 3 of them. Substitute salaries, we felt we can reduce there, and then some other little pieces. Auditing reduced by $3,000, and the net change in salaries is a whopping $82. We were talking about possibly offering that to Mr. Graber, but then we decided against it. We did have to up, now the numbers in parentheses there are actually increases. We had to up the teacher retirement system number because of the new positions that we put into the budget. That's why FICA has gone up. Health insurance, again, based on new positions coming in, it's an estimate. And Kathy provided $331 to buildings and grounds. I don't know what they're going to use it for, but that'll offset the 82 for the salaries up above. But the net savings there.
George's coupons expire.
What's that?
In case any of George's coupons expire that he always uses.
He sneezes and saves that, so it's fine. So from expenditure reductions, there's a net, overall a net reduction from that 532, the previous slide, 317, 630. And then we are also looking at the additional state aid that I mentioned. Kathy and I talked about the DASNY grant to state aid. This is reimbursement from something when you get a grant from the state, you have to lay out the money sometimes and then get reimbursed for it. So that $50,000 is coming to us from after the fact. And we also put $13,000 back into the reserve, put it back in as opposed to, basically we're not going to be using that reserve money as part of a revenue allocation. So that savings net, $215, $284, and notice how nicely that works out to the $532, $914 deficit from the other slide. Do you want me to go backwards? No.
We have rules.
Okay, and there it is. So we are. Oh, jeez. So we're right now. That number is 0, and it's where we'd like to be. Okay. So with that said, for the past couple of years, we have had the benefit of taxpayer benefit of falling below the tax levy limit. Some of that obviously is used for carryover purposes in terms of a tax levy limit calculation for the following year. But we are proposing a budget at this point that is at a budget that's a 2.83% budget to budget increase, and that's because of increased revenues, by the way. That's why it's higher than the last number. The 2.58%, the estimated tax rate increase, is at the calculated levy limit. The one thing I just want to throw out to the board that we get caught up in every year, what to do, it doesn't change any of these numbers per se, but what to do with a projection in terms of assessed valuation. It sits on the books for this year at $44,963,399. We have carried that number over as an estimate for 1920, which I would recommend leaving in place. If the board decided to decrease that by 100, last year was the first year, or I'm sorry, this year was the first year, it decreased in some time. If we decrease that number by 100,000, that 2.58% here, sorry for the backwards, would, if you decrease the levy because you're taking decrease the assessed value because you're taking the tax levy, dividing it by the assessed value. If you decrease that denominator, you're going to end up with a higher tax rate. Doesn't change any of the budget numbers, but it would lead to a 2.81% tax rate. If you add $100,000 to that assessed valuation, it would have just the opposite impact, and it would take that 258 and make it 2.35. So I open that up to board discussion.
Well, I would just say that if they're going to continue to increase our combined wealth ratio and decrease our assessed values, somebody's wrong. Right?
I got nothing.
Obvious, but not helpful.
Statement.
That's obvious, but not helpful.
Yeah, I'm good at the obvious, okay?
1 year ago today, he said the same exact thing, and he's not wrong. He's not wrong. This is one of the reasons I would, again, recommend just leaving it where it is and carry it forward. And you can discuss that when this is all said and done. A quick mention of the contingency. If that were required for any reason, if a budget were voted down and we got to the point where we needed to go to contingency, we'd need to take out another almost $8 million, and that would automatically, by law, mean that we have to take all the equipment out. So George would not get the $331.
It's more coupons.
And there it is in tabular form. And that leaves us in a position just to look at what the ballot proposition would look like. Proposition number 1 is the 2019-20 budget. And proposition number 2 is that 3.846 and just asking for use of money that's already there for the capital projects that we discussed before. This does require voter approval. There's no impact on tax levy or tax rate. And if it's not approved, it just goes right back into the reserve fund. We can't use it for any other purpose. We can't give it back. We can't do anything more with it than use it for capital project work. And upcoming budget sessions. Wasn't 7 minutes, but I think I did okay.
It was pretty good.
Okay, so next week we'll talk about the adoption, but just confirm with me that you're okay with that assessed valuation projection where it is.
Jim? Stay there, come join us, whatever. The workers' compensation, we've gone through it year by year, and I just want to, I guess for public consumption, understand how it works. We get a bill for workers' compensation, but then we also have a reserve. What's the reserve for?
We actually, the reserve is funneled into the budget, so we pay for workers' compensation directly from that reserve fund. So the money in the reserve is directly used to cover those workers' compensation costs.
Does it zero out at the end of the year?
It depends on what the cost of the workers' comp that year is. So it does zero out, and then we put it back in. And we did budget a little bit more, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not looking at the numbers at the moment, but we did budget a little bit more just based on what we've dealt with over the past few years. And I believe unemployment works like that as well? Correct. Unemployment insurance works the same way, correct? It's budgeted in, and that has obviously come down significantly since we have really not excess positions in recent years. When I first got here, whatever it was, a number of years ago, we were dealing with a lot of excess positions and a lot of, well, much more significant. Right. That's what's happening this year. But I do anticipate that that may come down this year. We just can't. Oh, you know that.
Did anybody want to argue against flat? Did you have
I just wanted to say that, obviously, I think that it's not going to stay flat as far as the tax assessments.
It's coming down more.
It's going to come down more. People are, there's stacks of paperwork at town hall, people grieving taxes, so.
We get hordes of those certiorari copies every year. What Tom is talking about, and something to think about, is based on the income tax situation this year at the state level. A lot of people are getting hit by that SALT D, the cap on the SALT D, the state and local tax deduction. So that is a possibility. We can try and tie in the combined wealth ratio and that assessed valuation, but that may in fact impact us.
I mean, my concern is always putting out a number that we say it's going to be, and then getting caught with that at the end, and it's not that number. Now, I know
That's what
this
happened
worked
to us this
our
year.
benefit- It worked both ways, obviously. If it goes up higher, then there's a benefit on that end too. But I'm just considering this year and the way the climate is. I don't know.
So with the changes in the tax laws?
Yeah, and we have not got hordes of them yet, so I can't speak to that. And honestly, it is just an eye estimate because I see the mail come in, so I'm trying to just gain an accurate sense of what it looks like now versus the prior year. But that is a possibility, and it's a real possibility. So it happened last year. It was about $100,000 off, and it does not change the tax levy. It does not change the budget. It just ends up, if we have a lesser assessed valuation, it's gonna raise people's tax bills by X number of dollars. Not necessarily significant, but every dollar is significant. So I shouldn't say it that way.
Do you think the star exemption changes might affect that at all?
I think some people are gonna get caught. The way they've done this is they've made it less user-friendly, and there are some people who may not process the right way and end up losing it because of logistical technicality. So that may rub people the wrong way. Whether that impacts this year or a following year is a whole different situation. But you know, there are a lot of concerns here, and you know we've all faced them as taxpayers ourselves, and it's to the point right now where it is exceptionally expensive to live on Long Island. And this community is no different than any other. And it's, you know, we are trying to put together a budget here that addresses first the educational needs of our kids, but we are absolutely mindful of the taxpayer burden. What Tom is talking about, shifting that number, it's not going to change totals, but it is going to change what a bill looks like. And there's no secret here that the most significant component of anyone's tax bill is school taxes.
I mean, I think that we definitely are under an obligation to try to give the most realistic picture of what the taxpayers can expect. So if that means
Lowering
putting a
by
reduction, then
100,000.
I think we should consider it strongly.
The most affected people would be those with fixed incomes. Right, if they're getting a change in their tax bill, they're set to make a certain amount every month, every week. That's really where I think they would be most affected.
Well,
Ta-
and
tax
people that
bills-
are living paycheck to paycheck, which is a lot of people.
I mean, tax bill is based on an assessed value, that property's assessed valuation, so their income doesn't factor into it at all. So if you get hit, you get hit. You know, I don't know if it's gonna go down, only because I know, I can look at the combined wealth ratio as well, and I know there has been some development here that will offset some of those tax certs. I just don't know if it's gonna be a one-for-one. So it is a little bit difficult to predict, and I'm underestimating how difficult it is by saying that.
Anyone else?
You know, it didn't seem to cause a major issue last year because it is an estimated tax rate. If we didn't have to report it, we wouldn't, because we really have no inclination as to what will happen to an assessed valuation of the community. But it is required on the property tax report card, so it's something that we
Right.
must
But also
share.
last year,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, I was going to say last year, we had the benefit of being able to say so many years in a row that we had done it the opposite way.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
and we don't, and now we would be on a roll the other way.
Yeah, and to Xavier's point a little bit is that if people are going out and voting on a budget that says, okay, I'm willing to, you know, approve this amount or the percentage, and then that percentage isn't that percentage, you know, again, I'm not saying it's false advertising, we're doing everything that we're doing
Nobody
it the
argued the
right way.
false advertising when the assessed value went up and we lowered the tax rate.
Correct.
And it's really, it couldn't be the furthest thing from any advertising snafu. We are at the mercy of assessed
Right.
valuation, and it's just, you know, honestly, we badger the town, we badger the IDA, and they can only get the information so quickly. So it's, you know, we're trying to stay on top of it as best we can, but there are certain numbers that just aren't available to us until they're available. We will not get that final assessed valuation number. We'll get an estimate in May, which could be higher or lower, and then come October, or end of September, October, we get another estimate, which will definitely be lower than the one that we have in May. So unfortunately, the one that comes in May is typically after the budget vote. So it doesn't really help us. If I had that, I'd be able to give you a better inclination.
Right.
When does that come in, do you know? Well, it's after the budget's adopted, so it's not.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So maybe we split the difference. Maybe it's 50,000.
That, I think, is
consider.
great.
I'm
Yeah,
good with that.
I'm comfortable with that, too.
I'm in.
Great.
All hands in. Everybody else good with that? Are you good with cutting? So, yeah.
We will do the best we can. Now, we're adjusting our budget brochure this year because as per new requirements, section 203 of the law, that budget brochure is going to go home in both languages. We want to make sure that that estimation feature is understood. We have no control over assessed value. It is what it is. We have
We have
control
no
over everything
information
else.
on it.
Well, we
I mean, we have the
we know
current-
we have a 1.552 combined wealth ratio, which is higher. We know that there is a cap on SALT D. There are other factors in terms of properties that have been added, properties that have been reduced. You know, it's a constant request for information, but the flow can only come at certain times. So we're going to do the absolute best we can to stay on top of it, just so we know what we're dealing with. But I think the 50 is certainly reasonable if everybody's on board.
Yes,
Okay.
so.
That will be in the 15th presentation.
Great work, team. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yes,
Very
thank you
much.
all to the administration.
Very much appreciated. Okay, that's going to bring us to CSE, CPSC Curriculum and Instruction. Ms. McCoy.
It is upon recommendation from the Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education approve CSE, CPSC submissions as delineated.
Very good. Can I get a motion? Xavier, and a second from Christine. All in favor?
Reducing it 50.
And that is all of us. Thank you. Jim, I know you didn't really have a chance to settle back in, but we're coming to personnel for you.
I'm on it.
No worries.
Give me 2 seconds to open up my
You
numbers here.
can totally do that.
All right, I'm asking the board for approval of personnel items on schedule 5, 8, 10, 11, 13, 16, 22, and 22.
And 22. All right, can I get a motion? Tom, and a second. Bill. Right, any comments, questions? All in favor? Thank you
much.
very much. And to you, Dr. Acker.
Okay, it is upon recommendation from the Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education approve items I through N on this evening's business agenda.
Very good. We have those two. Can I get a motion? No, I can't. Oh, Linda, there we go. And a second from Christine. Okay, any questions about anything on here? All in favor? All right, we had some donations, and Barry usually does them, but I'm going to do them really quickly, I think. Why is that not coming up? All right, our first donation was from the Costera family, and it is a donation of $500 towards the Huntington High School Choral Extracurricular account, and we want to thank the Costera family very much for their donation. And, hold on, I was not ready for this. Also, we would like to thank Mid-Island Therapy Association for their donation of $500. This donation will credit the, am I pronouncing this right? Jagoda Scholarship Fund. So thank you to them for that scholarship donation. And finally, Washington Primary School PTA. And we're thanking them for a donation of $1,680. That is from the Washington Primary School PTA. Thank you to them, too.
I think they have that
Is it a field trip
requested
thing?
for a field trip
Yeah, usually it's for the transportation.
coverage.
Back in my old PTA days, I remember that. Okay, so we are back to communications and announcements from any board members. Have anything final to say? I'm going the wrong way. I'm sorry,
Public
everybody.
commentary.
Yes, public commentary. I should have gotten to first. Gee, is any wonder I wanted to skip right over that? Just kidding. Anybody that wants to come to the mic. This is our second public commentary section. You have 3 minutes to come to the mic if you'd like to speak. Hello, Mr. Levy. How are you?
Time's up.
Yeah,
I've been better.
Yeah.
Oh, this thing doesn't work too well.
Yes.
Hello, James. James has my back.
That's good.
I'm not sure about that.
And this way. Yeah. My name is Joseph Levy, and I'm a district resident and a employee of the district as well. I just wanted to share some thoughts and reflections with the 3-minute time limit, so give me a wave if I get close to that. I've been known to be a little loquacious. This evening was quite emotional, to say the least. And I think that when we look back, we can certainly move ahead. As a group of educators, we seek to look at what's to be learned
And oftentimes when we understand that with a clear mind, we know what to do. There was a lot of information coming out, and some rational, some irrational. I think that's what happens when there's emotion going on. But I think we could all safely say that we believe, most of us, that human trafficking is a serious issue. The play included that topic. In fact, that was referred to, I know in the Newsday article at the end, disparaging of cultures that are different from our own is also a serious issue, and we all know that it's wrong. And I think it was made very clear by the students, Mr. Schwindeman, Ms. Bernanke, and anybody who doesn't understand satire, that that's not what was being done in this play. The problem is not everybody understands satire and is not as well versed in musical theater. So people were hurt. That's real. That's why we had an issue. And I think that many of you might know that, or do know that, I have a great love for the Chinese culture and people. I spent some time living in China myself and try my best to understand the language. And being a minority in a majority culture. Some of us also know what that's like, and how it feels to be the subject of a joke. 30 seconds to go?
Sorry.
All right, that helps me to refer to Archie Bunker in my closing. Lear. Norman Lear, we know what he was all about, and we know how he created that character and why he created that character. But maybe somebody watching one of those shows could have very well got very offended, and probably did. And I think that with Phoebe explaining herself with a lot of emotion and representing herself for who she is, I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to mention names, but also the mother of a past alum expressing her feelings as well. Clearly, we're not out of the woods yet. I think there's a bit more to do in terms of cultural proficiency and understanding. It's always good to move beyond just tolerance and into actually an appreciation of culture. So that's my scattered set of thoughts. And I'll end with a Chinese proverb. I kid you not. The Chinese character for crisis is written in a way that represents two ideas. One is it's dangerous. And the other part of it is it's an opportunity. The danger here is fear, defensiveness, and blame. That's the danger. The opportunity is deeper understanding and appreciation and care and acceptance. And that's all I have to say. So thank you very much.
Thank you. That was very well said. It's the famous James Graber.
It is, yes. James Graber,
Apparently, Mr.
resident
Weaver
in the
doesn't have
district, a parent in the district, teacher in the district, and president of the Teachers Association here. This was a difficult meeting to sit through. My friend and colleague was vilified and characterized as a racist in social media and perhaps local media as well. I've known him for the better part of 20 years, and I've never seen him act in a manner to hurt, degrade, or humiliate anyone. And the arts are difficult when they provoke, but this particular provocation is foreign to me. This isn't a show about promoting racism, it's about mocking it. This isn't a show about getting a cheap laugh at a stereotype trope, it's about laughing at the expense of those who would exploit those stereotypes. Perhaps that distinction is nuanced, but I hope that that distinction isn't lost on the community nor the audience. These problems require a dialogue and not a Board of Education meeting. And I think that's one of the problems that we saw to this, is that there was a lot of emotion, and when there's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of talking but not a lot of listening. And that's, I think, the only shortcoming that came out of this. But the silver lining, I think, is once again the display of passion, eloquence, and solidarity that our students show, and they continue to be a testament to this district and to this community. So we should congratulate them. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. Thanks, James. All right, do any of my, oh, thought somebody else was getting up. Any of the trustees have closing remarks? No, all right, then, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Before you do that,
Wait,
just a
sorry.
quick point out
Yes,
here,
sorry.
something that was on the business agenda tonight that I just like to point
Oh, yes,
out.
of course, sorry.
No, that's okay, because typically I wouldn't do this, but just based on Mr. Levy's comments and a follow-up by Mr. Graber, that first contract, actually the only contract, Generation Ready, that is a program that we have seen in action in multiple places and have, it's not that common in this area, but we are looking to adopt to help us move forward in the area of cultural proficiency. And there is a number of workshops that I have been to. I have been there with principals and other members of the administrative council here, just to gain a sense of some of the other perspectives from beyond this area. And there is a continuum from ignorance all the way to proficient, and very few school districts are at that proficient level based on what I have learned and what I have seen. And it is our commitment to get there and get there as quickly, but as quickly with integrity as possible. And that's what, but this it's one piece of the puzzle here, but it's a commitment that we're making, and I'll say it now, it's going to be certainly incorporated into our board goals for, I'll recommend it for incorporation for 2019-20. I did have a conversation with our first speaker tonight during the first commentary, and I just wanted to mention she was very impressed with the students, and I did indicate that I would indicate to indicate the same to them, and I offered her the chance to have a dialogue with me so that I can help them understand the best way we can move forward together. And I think that's a big part of the healing process that both of our last two speakers alluded to. So.
Very great. All right, so I had a motion to adjourn from Tom. Could I get a second from Christine? All in favor? Thank you, everybody, for coming. Get home safely. Boy, oh boy.